I'm Sara Speicher from the World Association for Christian Communication, but the person who is leading us today is Dr. Sara Macharia from the World Association for Christian Communication, who is our global media monitoring coordinator and the program manager for our gender and communication program. So I'm going to turn it over now to Sara, who will lead us through this whole session.
Thank you very much. Welcome everyone to this webinar. If you joined us for the launch of the toolkit a couple of weeks ago, thank you for returning. And if this is your first time with us, we are happy to have you here. 2 weeks ago, we launched a toolkit for trainers and advocates titled Taking Action Against Tech-Facilitated Gender-Based Violence, which we abbreviate or is globally abbreviated as TFGBV. The kit is a resource within a joint initiative by the International Communication Rights Champion, WACC, and the World Council of Churches, WCC. And our aim is to build a global gender-focused observatory on social media. So participation in the observatory is open to everyone. So at the toolkit launch, we encourage participants to, 1, download the kit, 2, to call their friends, family, neighbors, colleagues, and networks to form a media monitoring team, and 3, to plan to attend this session to learn how to apply the social media monitoring methodology that is introduced in the kit. So if you missed the first webinar, don't you worry. In the toolkit, we have everything that you need to know. So we're just going to move on with the training. At the launch, we had our partner from Nigeria, from Uganda, Joan Sanya Nankia of the Uganda Women's Media Association. And she presented eye-opening findings from their ongoing project that has applied the methodology in their context. She discussed the statistical results and retold testimonies of eureka moments experienced by project participants. Here we have QR codes. You can take a picture, but we are going to present the URLs later in the session. So our objectives, we aim to do this within maybe 1.5 hours or between 1.5 and 2 hours. And here we're going to learn how our Ugandan partners got there and how we too can do the same for this journey towards this transnational watch on misogyny on social media. So our objectives for this session, 1, we have 3 objectives. 1, we would like to build understanding on the concept and the value of human-driven media monitoring. 2, we would like to equip participants with skills and tools to monitor misogyny on social media. And 3, we would like everyone to leave here motivated to get involved in and to champion the global gender-focused social media observatory, which is aimed at advancing a misogyny-free digital world. In this room, I see some familiar faces. I've recognized some names here and some faces. And these are people who are active in the Global Media Monitoring Project, abbreviated as GMMP. The social media monitoring methodology is adapted from the GMMP, which for 30 years next year has systematically built empirical evidence on gender equality in the world news media. So I will ask us, everyone, to please raise your virtual hand if you lead the GMMP in your country or are currently part of the monitoring or have ever participated in the GMMP to date. I see Hillary I see Nicole, both from Jamaica. I think Kali has been part of this in the past. So there are quite a number.
I'm from Trinidad and Tobago.
Oh, yes, from TNT. And then from Sarita, who is our coordinator in Nepal. So there are quite a number of GMMP participants, perhaps maybe a third of us. So it's not going to be very new to us, but the adaptation will be new. So we would ask, why monitor manually? Aren't there algorithms for this? Don't content moderators who are paid by digital platform companies, don't they take care of this? Well, the fact that ordinary social media users see hate content is a good indication that the stopgaps are not infallible. Hate content escapes algorithms and slips through paid content moderators. And this is partly because the technology is always playing catch up with terminology and images, so the learning models are never in sync with hate in the analog world. It's also partly because the algorithms are designed to catch the worst case scenario, while equally harmful content slides under the radar. So how does this work? Artificial intelligence sifts through mountains of data for keywords. It pulls out posts that fit the criteria. It cleans them systematically. It analyzes frequencies, the text lengths, and it classifies them. But AI can only do what it is trained to do, and it has its limitations. Legitimate posts, such as those on breast cancer, for example, become the casualties of these algorithms. So manual media monitoring, while it is longer than AI-assisted monitoring, it does three things. One, it avoids algorithmic bias inherent in AI-assisted monitoring. Two, manual monitoring contributes to critical awareness of social media users. It builds an understanding, much as we do in the GMMP, it builds an understanding about the scale and spread of the problem. And thirdly, manual monitoring is able to detect misogyny and microaggressions that evade AI scrutiny on account of not containing the identity markers that match the algorithmic sifting. So let's back up a bit to understand the concepts. It's important to make a distinction between sexism and misogyny. Sexism is the expression, and this is a definition by a scholar, Heather Savigny. Sexism is the oppression of a biological assumption of male superiority and female inferiority. In essence, sexism is discrimination that is based on assumptions about biological sex, which give rise to the belief that men are superior to women. This is what we call, gender stereotypes. Sexism, unfortunately, is not outlawed in legislation. It does not attract civil or criminal penalties anywhere in the world, and this is a conversation for another day. Misogyny, however, or gender-based hate expression is recognized in regulation as it is intended to incite discrimination, to incite hostility, to incite violence. And again, to quote Heather Savigny, misogyny can be argued to be a more entrenched and violent expression of sexism. Both are enmeshed within and are a necessary condition of patriarchy. Let's look at some other definitions. Philosopher Kate Mann of Cornell University defines misogyny as an attempt to control and punish women who challenge male dominance. Then there is sociologist Michael Flood in Australia, who defines misogyny as the hatred of women. And he notes, though most common in men, misogyny also exists in and is practiced by women against other women or even themselves. Misogyny functions as an ideology or belief system that has accompanied patriarchal or male-dominated societies for thousands of years and continues to place women in subordinate positions with limited access to power and decision-making. We have a small exercise for us all. So here I present 3 statements and I ask, is the statement sexist, misogynistic, or both? So the question is, does the statement convey discrimination based on assumptions about biological sex, which give rise to this belief in gender stereotypes of male superiority and female inferiority? Or on the other hand, is a statement intended to incite discrimination, hostility, or violence against either an individual woman or women in general. So I'd like us to take 3 minutes to select a response, and then we'll set it aside and we'll come back to it later. And the 3 minutes begin now. First question: women are sexist drivers, are careless drivers rather. Is this sexist? Is it misogynistic? Is it sexist and misogynistic? Pick one. The second statement: she is an evil old witch. Is this sexist? Is it misogynistic? Is it sexist and misogynistic? Is it both? Please note down your responses. We'll come back towards the end. And the third one: women sports commentators should stick to women's sports. Is it sexist? Is it misogynistic? Or is it both? Okay, so we'll move on. Monitoring involves one, a quantitative dimension, which is about counting. And here we see numbers or statistics that emerged from the Global Media Monitoring Project that helped us do the counts across years from 1995 to 2020. And in 2025, we are going to update this. So a quantitative dimension, which is counting. And second is a qualitative analysis. This is the quantitative dimension tells us what the forest looks like. The qualitative analysis looks at the trees. It is a detailed study to explain and illustrate the statistical data. In the GMMP, or in this methodology, we have 5 golden rules of media monitoring. The first one is accuracy. I see some of us have already entered the answers in the chat, but we'll come back to this later. So accuracy. A few mistakes can tarnish the entire exercise and damage its credibility. That's rule number 1. Rule number 2, fill in the form. We'll come across the form later on. Fill in the form or the grid. Do it to the best of your ability and check it again. And for most questions, there is an unsure option. This is bad, but it's better than nothing. Rule number 3, rely on the post only, not what you might know. Always refer to the monitoring methodology guide. And that is in the kit that we will be downloading later on, or that you probably have access to. Rule number 4, back to basics. When in doubt, refer to the methodology guide. If the answer is not there, go to the overall objective, which is to provide an objective analysis of misogyny or sexist hate speech, sexual harassment, and other forms of gender-based violence on social networks. Rule number 5, when it is clear, it is clear. If the answer is not clear from the outset and you find yourself having doubts about it, it's probably not clear. So in that case, err on the side of caution. So this is the grid. The coding grid and instructions are going to be shared in the chat shortly. They are also in the kit. This is how it looks like, and it is a template to be completed either by hand on printed sheets or on the computer. Manual coding protects the information from accidental deletion, but it is not green or environmentally friendly. Doing it on the computer in word processing, however, or on a spreadsheet software is practical where one has access to a computer. However, losing the information after the hard analytical work is a potential pitfall. And don't worry, we're going to look at each of these questions one by one. So, in the kit is a guide on sample selection. The instructions state, compile a selection of prominent women politicians, journalists, and activists in your country. And why these people? That's because girls and women targeted by misogyny or sexist hate speech and other forms of gender-based violence on social media are more likely to be politicians, journalists, and content creators, civil society activists, and human rights defenders. So the instructions say consider the following occupations: women and girls who work in politics and government, those who work in media or are celebrities, such as media professionals, journalists, YouTubers, Instagrammers, etc. And third, rights and justice advocacy occupations. These are activists or workers in civil society organizations who work in labor unions, human rights organizations, environmental issues, aid agencies, movement leaders, etc. These are the most likely groups to be targeted by online misogyny. And again, and I know that the GMMPers here will recognize some of these instructions. Begin with the first woman on the list. Find posts and start coding. So in the kit are instructions on how to find the relevant posts on X, on Instagram and TikTok, which posts to include in the sample and which ones to omit. And we have 4 practicalities. 1, work with a partner if possible to ensure accurate coding. Because remember, we want to generate data or evidence that is reliable. 2, capture all information clearly on the coding sheets. 3, check each completed coding sheet for errors and omissions and correct them. And 4, keep copies of the sheets if doing this manuscript or by hand or an electronic backup. So let's go to the coding. The first question is, who is the owner of the account? And when we talk about coding, it's not the software coding that we know of. This is about coding, research coding, where each answer is assigned a code. So the codes are on this left-hand column from 0 to 6, and each corresponds to a description to the right. So the account owner, is it the subject being coded? Is it an individual female? Is it someone whose sex is not clear, but it's an individual? Is it a media organization? So we have all these choices. And what you would do is enter the appropriate code in the coding sheet in the space provided. So this is the first variable. And we have these codes to select from. The next variable is about the number of followers. Again, in the guide, you will see another list of codes, and you select a code for that. The number of likes, the number of shares. And then number 5, which is interesting, is does the post exemplify sexist hate speech? And you have a choice. You have a skip here. You skip if you code 0 or 2, which means it doesn't, or you're not sure, and you skip to question 8. But if you select code 1 to this question, proceed to question 6. And variable number 6, or question number 6, is the category of gender-based hate speech. Again, here we have 5 codes to select from. So does the post exemplify sexual harassment and threats of violence? If yes, you would select under column 6, you'd select code 1. Does it exemplify stereotypes, objectification, body shaming? For example, a statement that corresponds to "she's ugly," you would select code number 2. Code number 3 is about dominance. So does the post assert or allude to superiority of men over women? For example, "we better never have a woman president." You would select code number 3. Code number 4 is discrediting, where the post is a slur over women in general. And code number 5 is the post exemplifies derailing, that is trying to justify abuse of a woman. For example, "she should not have dressed like that." And these are important. Why are they important? Because these categories are the outcome of research on classification of different types of misogyny. They are not arbitrary, but have been derived through rigorous research. Moving on to question number 7. Is the hate speech also directed to a group of women, or all women? Question number 8. Is the occupation of the person? So you code the person who the post is about. And remember the categories. They are going to be in the kit. They in politics. Are they media celebrity? Are they activists? And there's a selection of codes here. Question number 9, the age of the person. And all these are important because the results allow us to cross-tabulate answers from one question with answers from another question. So we can do an analysis on ageism, for example. We could do an analysis on say, the categories, the occupational categories. Question number 10, does the post state or imply the person is a sexual minority in the context? Number 11, does the post state or imply the person is part of an ethnic or racial minority group in the context? So the coding takes intersectionality into account. It recognizes that homophobia, racism, and other forms of bias and discrimination sometimes accompany hate speech directed at women and girls. So questions 10 to 12 capture these details. Moving on, hashtags. Collecting hashtags and slur terminology helps to quickly identify other hate content. For example, so in questions 13, 14, and 16, these are designed for this purpose. Question 13 says, enter the first hashtag used. 14, enter the second hashtag. And in 16, enter any other hashtags, the handle name, slur words, slur abbreviations, sexist terms, if any, and add all observations in this cell. So question 15, remember the image about the forest and the trees. Question 15 serves to flag posts that are interesting for further analysis using a qualitative approach. So the quantitative results, again, I repeat, are the forest or the big picture, while the qualitative findings are the trees, and their role is to contextualize the statistics that emerge out of the analysis of the responses to questions 1 to 12. So once you've coded one post, skip one row on the coding sheet and begin coding the next post. Now, I'd like us all to use our phones or our devices to scan this QR code to download the kit, and it is available in those 4 languages there. Alternatively, if you do not have a phone or something that you can take a picture of this QR code with, here is a short link. Stop TFGBV -toolkit. So download the kit, and we're going to need it for the next segment of the webinar, or we can share the excerpt. Yes, thank you, Sarah, for sharing the excerpt from the kit on the chat.
Just to say, I'm having trouble sharing an actual file, but I will share a link, I think, which will just have that excerpt.
Okay, wonderful. There is a link for those still having trouble. There's a link in the chat on how to access it. And we will go, that's the entire toolkit, and we will skip to page 16. So we will code this first post here. So this is a post that was on Twitter, well, now X, and it is about Catherine McKenna. Catherine McKenna, the Canadians will know her. Catherine McKenna was a former Canada Environment Minister. And this person who uses the handle at Animographics says, Catherine McKenna advised them, if you tell a lie often enough, people will believe it. It was funny how Climate Barbie's husband came out later saying Justin, and here that's Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister, is far from a feminist and doesn't believe any of what he says in public. Okay, so we'll go to the questions. The first question, and I think now we are going to use the chat. The first question is about owner of the account, we have 7 codes to choose from 0 to 6. So the owner of the account at Animal Graphics, and of course you can click and see if there's a picture of the person. Is it the person being coded? Is it Catherine McKenna? If it is Catherine McKenna, then it would be, the code would be 0. Is it an individual female? Code 1, an individual male. Code 2, an individual, sex not clear. Code 3, a media organization. Code 4, another organization or group. Code 5, or something else. So in the chat, what code would you use for this? Suggestions. Just enter the code that you feel is correct for 1. I see 3 or 6.
Sarah, could you repeat the question, please?
So the question is, who is the account owner? And you may need to click on the link to identify the person or entity behind the post. The choices are, it's a subject being coded, it's an individual female, an individual male, an individual whose sex is not clear, a media organization, another organization or group, or another person. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I think I will stop sharing and I'll share my entire screen. There. That's a question for question 1. And this is the excerpt from, let's see if I can minimize this. There. Okay, so let's see, let's go back to the chat. I see 3, 3, 3, 3. I see a lot of 3s. There seems to be some consensus on the 3. And 3 here is an individual sex not clear. Actually, if you click on this, and the instructions do say you may need to click on the link to identify the person, you find that it is an individual male. So you have the liberty to do that in this case. Let's go to question number 2. The account owner, number of followers. We've got 7 codes again, and we have ranges from 0 followers to more than 10,000 followers. What code would we pick for question number 2? I see some 2s, I see some 3s. Actually, the correct answer is 2, because it does say it's 421 followers, and you have a range under code 2 of between 101 to 500 followers. Question number 3, the number of likes. We have again from code 1 to 4. I think now you get the hang of it. Number of likes. correct. I see that in the chat. I see a number of ones because here we do see this like symbol, 17 likes. Okay. Question number 4, the number of shares. So who found this post worthy of resharing? How many people? Code 0, 0 shares, up to code 4, more than 500 shares. I see a 1. I see a 1. I see lots of ones. Exactly. So the number of shares, you see, it's very simple. Anybody can do this, can monitor. So yes, 2 shares, which corresponds to code number 1. Question number 5. Does the post exemplify sexist hate speech? And again, here we have the definition of misogyny. Sexist hate speech is manifested through personalized, intrusive, and often sexualized attacks intended to dominate, control, or silence women. Sexist hate speech ranges from contempt to hostility and threats to exploitation and sexual harassment directed at girls and women. So you have 3 codes to choose from 0 to 2. Is it? It's not sexist. Code 0, it is clearly sexist. Code 1, you're not sure. It's code 2. I see consensus again. Code 1, which means it is clearly sexist. And I'm going to ask one person, Sandra. Sandra, why do you say this is sexist? Please unmute yourself.
Hi, everyone. Yes, I think I think it is sexist because they are
What word or term in this post makes you think it's sexist?
it is about because they named Catherine Climate Barbie.
Exactly, Climate Barbie.
Barbie.
Exactly.
So but she has a name.
Exactly. And that really is a slur on her. Objectification. Actually, we'll answer the next question, which is question number 6. What category of hate speech is it? Between 1 to 5, is it sexual harassment, threats of violence? Is it objectification, stereotyping, body shaming? Is it about dominance? Is it discrediting? Is it derailing? What code would you pick here for question number 6? I see a 2. A 2 is about stereotypes, objectification, body shaming. I see 1, 2. I see a 4. 4 is about discrediting, slur over women in general. I see another 4. I see a 2. I see a 4. I'm surprised that we have so many 4s. Diana, why would you put this as a 4?
Because
Diana, yes, go ahead.
Because he's saying from a feminist and doesn't have any of what he says in public. The fact that the post says includes feminist.
Okay, I think I see thank you, Diana. I think I see what the issue is here. This comment about being a feminist, doesn't believe any of what he's saying. They're talking about Catherine McKenna's husband. But if we think about Catherine McKenna, what the way she has been named here, what would you pick? And we distinguish between what her husband says and what he said about her. I would agree with Kali. Kali, why would you pick 2?
So I have to say thanks, Sarah, for asking. I looked at it and I kind of thought, oh, this person's discrediting her. But I think it goes back to the point that you made earlier, that by referring to her as climate Barbie, she is being stereotyped and pegged as a particular kind of person, and in that way she is being objectified. So that's why I went back to 2.
Exactly. I would agree with that. Thank you, Kali. I would agree that this is about objectifying her, specifically because of the name that's used on her. So question number 7, is the hate speech also directed to a group of women? Is it being generalized to all women? Is it a 1 or a 2? And I see Hillary. Hillary, I understand. Yes, the confusion is that the post is talking about several people. So question number 7, a group of women, is it generalized or is it only to one woman? I see a 1. I also see a 2. And of course, we are coding Catherine McKenna because this is about her as a woman in politics. I see a 1. I see a 1. Yes. So I would agree that it is a 1. It is directed only to Catherine and not to women in general. Question number 8, and we're going to have a chance to work in groups to look at 3 other stories just to familiarize ourselves with the process. So number 8 is the occupation. Call the girl or woman who the post is about. Again, we say this is about the women in, it's about misogyny. So it's strictly about the women that we have searched for posts about. So from code 1 to 3, I see lots of 1s, exactly. It says clearly here, and this would be coded in Canada, and the Canadians would know who Catherine McKenna is. So she is a member of parliament. And then the age of the person, you would not know. Not everyone would know. But since this is a Canadian post, the Canadians would know. Is she 18 and under, or is she 80 plus, or any of the codes in between? So again, the analysis from this question will also get to the issue of ageism. Who is more likely to be targeted? I think I'll help us out. When this post was done, I think she was just turning around 50. So we would use code number 4. Number 10, does the post state or imply the person is sexual minority? That's a no. That's a 0, code 0. Does the post, question 11, does the post state or imply the person is part of an ethnic or racial minority in the context? Again, the code is 0, no. Question 12, does the post state or imply the person is part of any other minority group in the context? Again, the code is 0. And then 13, enter the first hashtag used. Now, going to the post, there are no hashtags. So we put a dash or a dash. Question 14, enter the second hashtag. Again, that's a dash. And then 15, is the post interesting for further analysis? What do you think? Is the post interesting for further analysis? Do you think it's interesting when we are trying to understand misogyny? I see a 0. Is it interesting? Is it something that we would take out and analyze further qualitatively? It does take thinking to conduct this, even though it is easy, it's not relatively easy. And that's why we work in groups to agree on an answer. I see a 0, and I'm going to call on Faith. Faith, why do you think it is not interesting for further analysis?
Okay, I thought it was straightforward. We already identified it was a stereotype. So I just guessed. I'm not sure if it needs any further analysis.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Faith. I see still a question about age. Age, and we are relying, Hillary notes, it's not, I'm not clear about coding age. The post does not give age. So we are relying on our previous knowledge, or do we research on this public figure? Now, the point is, when we're doing this coding, we're looking for people in our, women and girls in our own contexts, public figures. So we know them, we know who they are. So we're not really doing further research. We know who they are. And we say that when you're unsure about the age, just go to the next age category, the next code. There are further instructions in the guide. Okay, then 16, the last one, enter the post handle, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and other hashtags, any slur words, slur abbreviations, sexist terms, if any, add any other observations in this cell. What is very obvious that we would enter in 16? Again, here is the sheet, and we would enter it over here. What is so obvious in terms of any terms that are sexist? Climate Barbie, name calling, that is derogatory. Yeah, so the Barbie. And it's going to be different from context to context because the slur words, the terminology is also specific to the cultural context, to language. So collecting this information makes it easier to quickly identify other posts that would be using similar hashtags, similar slur words, similar abbreviations, similar sexist terms, in order to find them quickly and analyze them. So we are going to go into groups, and we're going to do something similar. We have a PowerPoint for coding practice in the groups. Please download it from the link. And this is what we're going to do. Thank you, Terry, for sharing the PowerPoint. I think it would also be useful to share the excerpt from the toolkit in Dropbox as well, so that we can have the questions and the codes handy. So here are a number of posts. The first post is from my backyard, from Kenya, by somebody who uses the handle It's Kiprono. And he writes, this socialite bimbo Esther Passaris does not even know that Rex Masai was killed 5 days before we occupy parliament. She just runs her mouth like a guitar because that's her only ticket to State House. amalize atoke apotelee mbali. That's Swahili, meaning let her finish and let her disappear. So that's one post. And again, I say it is very context specific. Maybe those who are not familiar with the language may find it difficult to code this one. But those who know the context, especially in Africa, in Eastern Africa, you'd be able to do this easily. The next post, you have 3 posts to choose from. The second one is from Canada, again about a journalist, Lisa Laflamme. And this person who uses the hashtag, what's her hashtag? Anyway, her name is Cheryl Armistead, who says, much respect to you, Omar. Canadians will know that this is also another, will know the context. I stopped watching CTV News when incredible, intelligent Lisa Laflamme, a model for integrity, was treated so terribly. Sadly, CTV hiring VK, Canadians will know who this is, who can barely contain her contempt for a PM, only recently stopped calling him Justin. He's fine on alien. And the other one is from the UK. Somebody who's called Rangers Toon says, did anyone else hear Enio Aluko, who was a commentator at the World Cup in 2022 on TalkSport? She picked Jimmy Greaves as one of her top 5 English strikers because he scored a hat-trick in the final World Cup. That's why women shouldn't be near men's football. So you have those 3. We're going to go into groups and we can select any of these, whichever speaks to the group. I would like that each group selects a leader, appoints a leader. So when we come back, we're not going to discuss the answers, but we're going to discuss what we found most interesting, most eye-opening about the exercise. So, Sarah, please put us in our groups. Welcome back. I hope it was fun. So, room 1 that had Christiana, Faith, Hillary, Lisa, Nicole, and Rogers. What was most interesting? Who will speak on behalf of the group?
We found it fairly straightforward. We looked at the Cornelius post, which was talking about a politician, and we had it was fairly straightforward to decide which codes we would use. Politician, somebody knew their age, etc. Where we found it was kind of interesting and we weren't sure, it was similar to the sample coding that we did with you, Sarah, when we had to decide what kind of sexist post. It was not misogynistic, it was sexist. And we could not and we were uncertain whether to go for stereotype or slur, because we actually felt it was both. Because the bimbo is a socialite bimbo, that's kind of a stereotype. But at the same time, we felt that there was a personal slur because it's used in a slurring way, and plus the expression, she runs her mouth like a guitar, because that's her only ticket to State House. We felt that's a slur, so we had both stereotype and slur, and we weren't sure which to code it. I think we kind of went for number 4, but that's That's similar to what happened when we were looking at the sample with you before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you very much. And these are the kinds of conversations that help open up our minds as to and make us more aware about misogyny and different forms of misogyny. So, and it really does help to code in groups
What
to
happens
bring
though,
that awareness.
Sarah?
We also had a question about, well, we weren't sure what the question meant for question 10. Could you explain that again? Question 10.
So question 10, I need to bring up my okay, so let's see if I can bring it up. Question 10 says, does the post state or imply the person is a sexual minority in the context? That question?
Yes. What are you meaning by sexual minority?
So, especially in our context and actually everywhere, sexual minority, there's the person, are homophobic terms being used on her. Yes.
That's
okay.
what we thought, but we weren't sure.
Okay. Thank you. So, room 2, Diana, Esther, Mel, Papa Damature, and Rhoda. Who will speak on your behalf? What was most interesting or eye-opening? This is room 2 with Diana, Esther, Mel, Papa Damature, and Rhoda. Is your spokesperson for the group? Okay, let's move to room 3. Mel, were you going to say something?
No, I was gonna ask Papa Adama to speak on our behalf.
Papa Adama, you've been nominated.
Mel, please, Mel, if you can pursue, if you can pursue. Sometime my connection was not okay.
All right.
Please,
So,
if you can, yes.
none of us were based or are based in Kenya, so the last sentence there, we couldn't encode it there in terms of Cornelius. But we were also amazed by the name calling, which I think a bimbo would be almost like equivalent to a Barbie in this context. Yeah, I think what the previous speaker has also alluded to, but yeah. Do you want us to read the answers?
No,
Okay.
that's enough.
Yeah.
And actually, it is surprising how much the term bimbo has been used for so many years, and it's across all cultures.
Mm.
So it's amazing how it has gained traction all over the world. Yeah. So we get to see, the similarities across different cultural contexts. So room 3 that had Annie, Kali, Funmi, Patrick, Rosaline, Sandra, and Sarita. Who will speak on your behalf? What was most interesting or eye-opening about the coding experience?
I'm happy to take a stab at it if my group will correct me, because one, we didn't get through all the questions, but I think that we concur with the previous groups that this was an objectification of the individual. It was stereotyping, but there is also the element of a slur in there, in that she just runs her mouth like a guitar, because that's her only ticket to State House, which is like a real put down and putting somebody in her place, like, without the mouth, the motor mouth, she couldn't even get there. I do recall you doing a translation for us of the Kiswahili, which is, I think you said that it's let her just keep talking till she disappears. Yeah, we thought that this was a particular good example of objectification and stereotyping, specifically because of the name calling, the socialite bimbo. Anyone else? I see Annie.
We worked on it, and I agree with what she said. Thank you so much.
So thank you very much. Yeah, so I really hope that, and it is with practice that sometimes the answers are going to be able to jump at us. But let's go back to this other question. And I'm surprised that everyone picked exactly the same post and not a variety. So let's go back to this. Sexist, misogynistic, or both. What did we pick from number 1? I see A, sexist. I see A. I see 3 A's. I would tend to agree with, okay, A. Yes, I would tend to agree with the A, that it is sexist. What about number 2? She's an evil old witch. What did we pick for that? A C, sexist and misogynistic. A C, lots of C's. Yes, I would agree with that. What about the third one? And the point of this is because we are monitoring misogyny. Remember, as we said, that misogyny is recognized in regulation, but sexism is not. Misogyny is prosecutable, sexism isn't. So number 3, is it sexist or misogynistic or both? I see an A, I see a C, I see a B, an A. So it's all over the map. All over the map. I think that is a subject of discussion, which we will not go into here because of time. So recognizing misogyny is key for this exercise. Now, this here is, and I'm almost coming to the end. This here is a scholarly analysis of sexist content on social media. It is an example that will inspire qualitative analysis to be produced by this global gender-focused social media observatory that we are aspiring to on the categories of misogyny. You remember question 6? So, which is important to build the evidence for critical awareness, for training and advocacy. Now here, what they did, and this was about sexism, they managed to classify the samples into 3 types of sexism. Remember, we have for misogyny, we've got 5 categories. It's from hostile sexism to benevolent sexism to objectification. So all things proceeding as we would like, and when we form our teams and are able to participate and collect the data for this observatory, we will then conduct a similar analysis to then come up with classifications of misogyny in order, and examples from around the world, in order to then use it as evidence for the change actions that we aspire to, which is really to make the digital space more friendly, less hostile to women. So remember, I mentioned at the beginning that there was a similar exercise, actually a longer monitoring was carried out by our colleagues from the Uganda Media Women's Association, UMWA, and was presented at the launch of the kit about 2 weeks ago. This is one participant, her name is Samantha, who was trained by the project, and she had this to say. She said, "I no longer participate in every topic on X. Previously, I would repost and engage on topics that even fueled hate speech against women. I learned and now know better. Recently, there was a strong conversation about single mothers and the impact of children on women's careers. I would have participated, but I intentionally didn't, because I am now able to identify bias, stereotypes, sexism, hate speech, and misconceptions against women in the conversation. And with this, and this is the kind of mind-opening eureka moments that come about as a result of participating in the monitoring, on top of collecting the evidence, the statistical evidence, and the qualitative data. And with this, I'm going to hand over to Sara Speicher, who is going to outline the next steps and conclude this webinar. Thank you. Sara, over to you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Always, I also learn a lot through these sessions and really are grateful for everybody who participated, who is learning more about this methodology, and hope that we can together take it farther. So the next steps, we have a 1, 2, 3 as a possibility. So we can encourage you to continue to monitor, to practice, but also to gather a group and start working with others and do some of the monitoring and then send us your coding sheets. We will gather them together, and at a point we will be analyzing and making a report about the findings that people all over the world are having. So do conduct the monitoring and send us your coding sheets. We know, as an aside, that 16 Days Against Gender-Based Violence is coming up November 25th through December 10th. And you are also welcome to share stories about how the monitoring strikes you, what you've learned, because we would also like to highlight that work and encourage more people to have this critical media literacy on social media. So invite others to join. Share the word about this methodology, and let us know. Register your team with us so that we can send you further resources or invite you for further trainings or experiences. And just let us know if you want to support the observatory in any other way. This is our email address that you can reach us all at, genderjusticeonline@wacglobal.org. Also, feel free to send us questions, but that's how you can get in touch with us. So thank you again for your participation. This has been great, and we look forward to this effort and our conversations continuing. Thanks very much.